Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Krishna is the source of all incarnations, text number 15, Slok 15. Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodari samplave navyarupya mahimayam apadvaivasvatam manu Rupam, form. Saha, he. Chakrihe, accepted. Matsyam, of a fish. Chakshusha, Udadi, water. Samplave, inundation. Navi, on the boat. Arupya, keeping on. Mahi, the earth. Mayam, grounded. Apart, protected. Vaivasvatam, Manu, the father of men. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Sri Prabhupada. When there was a complete inundation after the period of the Chakshusha Manu, and the whole world was deep within water, the Lord accepted the form of a fish and protected Vaivasvat Manu, keeping him on a boat. Purport. According to Srimad Swami, the original commentator on the Bhagavatam, there is not always a devastation after every change of Manu. And yet this inundation, after the period of Chakshusha Manu, took place in order to show some wonders to Satyavrat. But Srila Jiva Goswami has given definite proofs from authoritative scriptures that there is always a devastation at the end of each and every Manu. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also supported Srila Jiva Goswami and also quoted from Bhagavatam about the inundation after each Manu. Apart from this, in order to show special favour to Satyavrat, a devotee of the Lord, in this particular period incarnated himself. actually in this verse, there are actually two incarnations of Matsya being described. One who saved the Vedas, and another one who came to help Satyavrat Muni. So at the end of the previous kalpa, okay, let's explain kalpas, otherwise we won't be able to. So, in a day of Brahma, there are 1,000 kalpas. In each kalpa, there are 14 manus. And so altogether in a day of Brahma, there's 5,040 manus. So the manus, we start with Swayambhuva Manu. Who's the first Manu? And we're up to number 7 Manu. Right here now, in this Kali Yuga, we're up to number 7 Manu, whose name was Vaivasvata. So Krishna talks about him in the Bhagavad Gita. Because he's the son of Vaivasvata, the sun god. And the previous Manu before this current one, Vaivasvata Manu, the speaker may be off. Speaker's not got any license. It's a big. There's a button on top somewhere that they push. You could always bring your chair a little closer. So before Vaivasvata Manu was Chakshusha Manu. So Chakshusha Manu is the one that they're talking about in this sloka. So in the previous kalpa, in a different Manu, there was a demon named Hayagriva who wanted to steal the Vedic knowledge from Lord Brahma. So the first Matsya, the first fish incarnation, came to rescue the Vedas, because at the end of the kalpa there's a inundation and the universe is filled up with water, and so the Vedas were down in the water. So Matsya the fish came and rescued the Vedas. And the second Matsya incarnation came during Chakshusha Manu's reign to help us a king called Satyavrat. So this king Satyavrat, he was a very great devotee, so the Lord wanted to help him. So he was performing austerity by only drinking water and doing his austerity on the banks of the Kritamala river. So, part of offering water to the holy rivers, you take a time he picked up this palm full of water, there was a small fish inside the water on his head, in his hands. And the king was going to pour it back into the river, and the fish talked to him. The fish said, "Why are you going to put me back into the river? I'm only little and there are other aquatics that will come and eat me." So the king was very kind with the fish. He put it in his water pot and took it home. So he put the fish in a jug of water, but the fish started to grow. He put the fish into a well, but the fish still kept growing. And he grew so much that even the ocean wasn't big enough for him. So at that time the king realized this is not an ordinary fish. So this is how the incarnation of the Lord appeared as Matsya. So the Lord can appear in any species, and he's no less potent no matter what species he appears in. So this big fish told the king, "There's going to be an inundation right now at the end of this month. And what I want you to do is get on top of a big boat, and with all your learned brahmanas and saintly persons, with all your seeds and herbs and plants, and I will save you." So the king boarded the boat with the Saptarishis, the 7 great sages, and all the seeds for the herbs. And then Matsya appeared as a big golden fish with a great horn on his head, which they tied the boat to. So while on the boat, Matsya the fish gave Satyavrat all kinds of knowledge of all the Vedas and everything else that he might need, all the Puranas, Samhitas, Sankhya, Yoga, Kriya, and it enabled Satyavrat to become Vaivasvata Manu in the next Manu. When Prabhupada gave class on this verse, he didn't speak about the story at all. He mostly tried to get us to understand how time, universal time, cannot be perceived the way we perceive time. Because if you go to school now, in history you'll find out that the history of intelligent human civilization is maybe around 3,000 years. But Actually, these are histories, and the fact that Chakshusha Manu came before Vaivasvata Manu is a historical fact that we need to accept, even though we can't perceive it in our brains. So in Brahma's one day, there are 4,300,000 years in a yuga times 1,000 yugas, 4.32 billion solar years. So in one day of Brahma, 14 Manus rule, which means that each Manvantara, each reign of Manu, lasts approximately 300 million years. So Chakshusha was the 6th Manu, and we are currently in the reign of the 7th Manu by Vaivasvata. Who was this king called Satyavrat? Vaivasvata Manu was the king called Satyavrat. After the fish saved him, and then the kalpa came around, rolled around, and a new kalpa started, and Satyavrat became Vaivasvata Manu. We heard in Srila Prabhupada's purport, there's a difference between our acharyas about whether a pralaya happens at every manu or not. But in any case, this particular change of manus from the 6th to the 7th was very special because the Lord wanted to incarnate and help King Satyavrat. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that he comes to protect the pious, to annihilate the demons, and to uphold religious scriptures, religious teachings. So this story of Matsya, the first story which happened at the end of the Kalpa and the beginning of the new Kalpa, where Matsya saved the Vedas, he's upholding the Dharma. He's restoring Dharma. And the second incarnation, where he's coming to protect Satyavrat Muni and to teach him how to become a Manu for the next Kalpa. He's protecting his devotees. So the aim of this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam is to establish Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. I've repeated that in the last class, but it's very important. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So, as we go through this chapter of the Bhagavatam, we'll find this protecting of devotees and killing demons is a theme right throughout. Parichanaya sadhunam vinashaya chadasutta. The Bhagavad Gita 4.8. Srila Prabhupada spent a lot of time in his class trying to help us to understand the length of time. He was giving the example that every living entity lives for 100 years of their time, but 100 years for an ant is different from 100 years from us, and is different from 100 years from the demigods. He was giving an example from his time in the 1960s and 70s. He said they sent a Sputnik up into the universe, and in one day it circled the Earth 3 times. He said if you go further away from the Earth, then you'll find the Earth rotates in only 1 hour of your time. So we already heard in the summary that one Mahal rules for approximately 300 million years. It's a long time. We can't imagine that much time. But it's given also, Krishna also confirms it in the Bhagavad Gita. So, Prabhupada also quotes from Bhagavad Gita 4.1, Imam Vishvasvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Manu Ikshvatave. So, in that, Krishna is telling that he gave the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita to Vivasvan, who was the sun god, who gave it to his son, who's known as Vivasvan Manu. Then Prabhupada explains how the name comes about. Vivasvan, because he's the father, his son, his name is Vaivasvan. He got another name as well. He's also named Stradadeva. And he said traditionally in India, especially we mentioned Maharashtra, he said that the tradition is that you give a name to the child, then you add the father's name, and then you add the village name. So immediately you know the name of a person, you know who his father is, and you know which village he came from. So we know that Vaivasvata Manu, his father was Vivasvan. He has a name also, Stradadeva. And Prabhupada also wants us to understand that in different places in the universe, the environment is different. Everywhere in the universe, there are these 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But in different places, the proportions of the elements are different. Like here on the earth is the main element. If you go to the sun, fire is the main element. Your cooking fire is also the main element. But still the same 5 elements are there. In the fire there is also earth, there is also water, the steam comes out, there is also air, there is also air. So everywhere there is the 5 elements, but sometimes one is more prominent than another. Then he says, and in the sun, fire is the main element, but there are living entities who can live in that position, like the sun god. He lives in the sun. And he says you can understand it simply. If you go into the ocean has got mainly water in it. But we can't live there, but there are many living entities who can live in the water. And living entities who live in the water. And in the same way, there are living entities who can live in the sun. Prabhupada then makes a joke. He says, just like according to karma, you get in your next life the body according to your activities in this life. So he was giving this class in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, they have a nice, very nice sea beach, and the devotees who used to be in the armies, they would go out into the sea and ride on surfboards. Prabhupada says, so these people, they go out into the sea, they want to swim very nicely. They want to, so next step, they can become a fish. And he says, you will take so much pleasure, you go out, and he says, what's that called? And they say surfboard. He says, yes, surfboard. You go out on your surfboard and you spend so much time out in the water. So next life you can have the body of a fish. So Prabhupada is also saying, towards the end of the Manu's reign, the water in the universe, the Manu's reign begins with the inner nation. There's water everywhere. And he says, as the Manvantara progresses, the water will be reducing. So now we see big oceans. But he said, towards the end of the Manvantara, even the oceans will dry out. Says then everyone will die, but then again there will be an inundation, more water will come. So like that, while we're in the material world, this cycle is continually going on. We come together, He says, like straws floating in the water. Sometimes they come together and the water moves and they're drawn apart. So sometimes we come together and sometimes we're apart and we're somewhere else. Somebody's going to be a cat, somebody's going to be a dog. You want to protect something for your grandchildren, but in their next life they might be a cat. How can they enjoy what you're protecting for them? He says, I want my grandchildren to have a car. But the petrol will be finished. Nobody can drive a car. Anyway, we'll go from Prabhupada's age and come back to our subject. So, in conclusion, we have to understand from Prabhupada's point of view, he accepts the history that is given to him. He doesn't argue and say it's mythology. He doesn't try and tell you it's different. He accepts the authority of the Vedas. So modern science is trying to understand the universe, but makes mistakes, whereas the Vedas give us everything in much detail. We're not, humans, beings didn't come about by accident. We didn't come from a big bang or a chunk that suddenly developed life and become an amoeba, that suddenly became an insect, that suddenly became a fish, that suddenly became an animal, that suddenly became a human. We're not like that. And this is all planned by the Lord. And so we live in this universe, in this place, as descendants of Vivasvata Manu. And once we accept this knowledge and accept Krishna in truth, this is in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoga tatvadaha chattva deham punarjanma naitimam itisurajana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode of Arjuna. This story of Matsya in full comes in the 8th canto, 24th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The story of Matsya, if you want to learn more about it, comes in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 24. Okay, thank you. Apologies for my shortcomings. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or corrections? Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Prabhupada's purports are really nice and amazing. And the fact that the Lord incarnate in any species of life, people wonder that how can the fish talk and all that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did demonstrate this in the forest of Jarikanda, where he got the animals to, chant the holy name in unison with him, and it was virtually the change of nature for them.
Yes.
So in any species of life, by the mercy of the Lord, the living entity can be elevated to the highest state of the law of God. So that makes us accept the fact that in spiritual world, although the different living entities, are in the different bodies, that is, a bird is there, and the cloud is there, and the animals are there, and the rivers are there, but they all have developed, the consciousness, whereby they are actually, serving Krishna very nicely. So these kinds of actually, incarnations, right? The Lord can incarnate in any body, and behave as the most intellectual being. Shows that every species of life, right, can be elevated to the highest state of the love of God, actually inside the spiritual world. That's really good. And to that, there's, what you mentioned about one element is more prominent on the other planets and the other, excellent realization. And the fact that if the fish can live in the water, right, but we cannot, that doesn't mean that the life cannot exist on the other planets. There is always physical life existing. Prabhupada proves by such simple examples, these very difficult facts for people to accept.
Yes.
That's just a nice.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
So,
And it gives great hope for us as well. Because if the Lord can make the tigers in Jaripan become friendly, it's hope for us to rectify ourselves as well. Any other? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mata. It was such a nice class. And, when we talking about the time frame, the life here is 100 years for a human. And you also mentioned for an ant it's different. And as we go up again, and the demigods is different. So, are we talking about the human years? Because once we hear the life of, say, Manu or Brahma, inconceivable, we can't even conceive. So, is that the human years we are talking about? Because for us, 100 years is good time, but it's not really great, it's a good time. Even for Brahma, the people who are living in the Brahmaloka, 100 years for them is maybe just like for us humans.
From the point of view of the person in that experience,
Yeah.
it's 100 years.
It's 100 years, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So when they give the big calculations like 4.3 billion years, I think that's our years for our understanding.
That's it.
Because that's come from Prabhupada's purpose. So I think that's what it made for our understanding. Is that your understanding of what it means?
Yeah, those 360 trillion and 11 billion years, which is life of Brahma, that is equivalent of the human years.
Human years.
Yeah, human years. And similarly, the life of the demigod is also expressed in terms of basically the human years.
Yeah,
Which we can
good.
relate.
6 months is 1 day of the demigods.
Yeah.
But then when he comes to the Brahman, his life is longer, and I'm not sure if all the demigods are the same. So yeah,
Yeah, that's a very good point. That because for us to understand, they give earthly human years, or else it's can't even calculate how it comes.
yeah. Even the calculation is difficult, let alone trying to understand someone else's life.
Yeah, because I always think when we say that big figures, it's very inconceivable. So for people living in that sphere, it's not that great because 100 years is good, but yeah, that's good to understand.
Yeah, like Brahma has to wake up every morning and remember where he was the day before. But we also wake up in the morning sometimes not remembering what we wrote. And it takes us a little while to get our thoughts together. So Brahma has the same problem. But he takes the opportunity to sit and meditate again for 1,000 years.
And as Krishna incarnates once in the day of Brahma, so in a lifetime of Brahma, he can get the darshan of the Lord 36,500 times. Every day is taking the darshan. So it's amazing.
And our main goal is to not just have the darshan, but to look at